Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles. I started this podcast a little over 2 years ago to try and have respectful conversations about controversial issues. Well, my topic today is, we've reached the top. We're going to be talking about Israel. And this is a topic that I have hesitated to talk about because I wanted to do it properly. And one of the things that it doesn't get much more controversial than Israel and the issues in the Middle East. And one of the things that I've done, if you've been following this podcast, is I try to bring on individuals who buck the common narrative of whatever the controversial topic would be. So it's a cylinder radio, so it's a circle and it's a rectangle, and well, rectangles are all this, or circles are all this, sticking with the metaphor. But that's why I brought in, when I wanted to talk about Donald Trump. You know, I've had a biracial singer, I've had a transgendered chef, and I've had a black teenager supporting Trump. I've had, for when I wanted to talk about law enforcement, I had on a 120-pound woman. When I wanted to talk about guns, I had a black woman in the South. You know, when I wanted to talk about Native American topics, I had on a libertarian, very far right-leaning Native American woman, because I want to try and change the narrative about all of this group of people are these things, like individuals are monoliths and things like that. So my guest today kind of fits into that category. As much as I try to not hold people up just by their immutable characteristics, I do think that representation matters. And I do think that it's very important for us to understand that people are diverse in all the ways that human beings can be diverse, not just diverse in the way that they look, but also diverse in the things that they support and the way that they think. So my guest today is Mustapha Ezzarghani, and he is the co-founder and president of the Moroccan-Israeli Friendship Association. I am thrilled to have him here. I am just getting to know him now, and I think this will be a great conversation that will hopefully spark other conversations. So Mustapha, thank you so much for being here. I'm really thrilled. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Thank you, Will. Thank you so much for the invitation, and thank you for having me. As you said, my name is Mustapha Ezzarghani. I'm the co-founder and president of the Moroccan-Israeli Friendship Association based here in the United States. I was born and raised in Marrakesh, Morocco. I moved to the United States when I was 27 years old. So that was in 2014. So 7 years ago, or almost 8 years ago. Both when I was in Morocco and after I moved to the United States, I was involved in interfaith dialogue and interfaith dialogue events. And in 2013, I organized and directed the first interfaith dialogue conference in Morocco. This is a conference where I brought the leaders of the three Abrahamic religions, not just in Morocco, but from other parts of the world, from African countries, from Europe, and from the United States. We had rabbis and priests coming from all over the world to create a discussion. I'm a person who believes in discussion and believe in sitting on the table and exchanging ideas and exchanging perspectives. That's what I have been doing since 15 years ago. I really enjoyed it. I benefited from it too. I had a lot of ideas that they have developed and changed, and my personality was impacted by this event and meeting all these people. And I learned to look at stuff from different perspective and try to understand where the other is coming from. Also, my education and growing up in Marrakesh and my Sufi education also helped me develop that too. So I'm very thankful that I was fortunate enough to have this career and have the experiences that I had, that I think they tremendously impacted the way I see the world right now.
Oh, that's so aligned with everything that I try to promote in my classroom, on here, on my social media accounts and stuff like that. It's constantly, you learn so much from engaging with people. Just conversation, you learn so much. As long as you go in with an open mind, a willingness to learn. You don't have to
Absolutely.
always change your mind, but just always adapting your thoughts and your ideas. You just keep refining them, like sharpening your blade up against people who disagree with you. If you're around everyone that agrees with you, that's that echo chamber idea, then you don't really sharpen your blade. You just get, your ideas get weaker and weaker and weaker because they're not up against any kind of resistance. It's like lifting weights in space. You know, there's no gravity.
Absolutely. One of the Islamic scholars that really affects or impacted my education or my personality in general is Al-Ghazali. He was a scholar in Andalus in the time Muslims were there, and he said that whenever I have a debate with someone, I make sure that I'm genuinely going to that debate to be convinced, not to convince the other party.
Mm-hmm.
I have the possibility that if this person is right, I want to be convinced. Like, to be open to be convinced and not go to debates with and making sure that you leave the debate the way you got into it. So yeah, debates are opportunities for learning, and it's amazing how just being an active listener and just genuinely from the bottom of your heart try to understand where the other person is coming from can go long lot and help you, either if you didn't get to agree with the other person, you just appreciate that you're a good listener, and you might end up being in a good term with them, even though you didn't get to the point where they convince you or you convince them. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, even the term debate, like I prefer like conversation, because I think debate is like you're trying to win, where conversation is you're trying to learn. But
absolutely.
yeah, in a debate, if you, like, the worst case scenario, the way I see it is, the worst case scenario is your ideas get revealed to be flawed. And then you're ashamed, you're maybe ashamed or embarrassed that you've been holding these really bad ideas, but now you can adjust them and you can update them. It's like updating your software. Isn't that a wonderful thing? The worst case scenario is you're embarrassed for having bad ideas, right? So that means you're going to learn. And if you win or you don't change your ideas, then that means your ideas are pretty solid. As long as you're going up against people who are good faith actors and have their ducks in a row and understand the topics and are well read and understand it. It just seems like a win-win if you go into it with that mindset.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that debate is a word that it's positive in my mind. It's a positive word. I know that it was corrupted and by our politicians that are always angry at each other and insulting each other. Like, what we see right now is not the debate, a healthy debate that we want. But if we're talking about when philosophers used to get together and do philosophical debates, that was very beautiful. Like, it's not, it was empty of anger and there was nothing personal in those discussions. It's not until recently when this word had really a bad reputation or bad rep. And I blame politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, a perfect example of this was when Kamala Harris was picked for the vice presidency under Biden. She was on like the Colbert show or something, and he's like, "Wow, you really were, accusatory of him, saying things about him being like essentially racist and maybe like a sexual assaulter and stuff like that. Like, how do you justify that with being okay with being vice president?" She's like, "It was a debate. It was a debate." It's like, whoa, wait, like. So what does that mean? Do you not believe it? Was just a personal attack to try and just destroy your opponents? Like, what does that mean? But in her mind, and this is our vice president, in her mind, and it's not just her. I don't mean to just throw her under the bus. I think this is common. I think you're right. It's politics is like, you say whatever you can just to destroy your enemy, even if it has nothing to do with the topic or anything to do with the ideas. It's about a personal attack. And I agree with you 100%. I think that is not the way. Let's get back to a point where it's all about finding the best ideas and understanding why you think what you think and why do I think what I think. And I think that if we just have genuine curiosity about our fellow humans, we can get somewhere a lot better. So getting right into it, why would you be someone who would be qualified, I guess, to talk on the Israel debate? The issue about Israel's right to exist, what's going on in the Middle East, and things like that. Like, what is your background? How do you have an understanding of this topic where I don't have a very, flushed out understanding of? I'm going to try my best to represent, opposing ideas and stuff like that. But what about your background gives you like the understanding of some of the things going on, being from Morocco and things?
Yeah, so I grew up in Morocco, and I was one of the among the generation that was really impacted um, by Middle Eastern Wahhabism when it reached out to Morocco. As you might know, in the early 90s, that's when we started watching satellites in Morocco, and the dishes were very popular. And that's where we started watching the TVs from the Middle East, from Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and that's the first time that we watched Al Jazeera and Al Arabiya, and all that news made it to Morocco. Before, it was really easy for Moroccan to protect their identity and their memory too, which is a beautiful memory of how Jews and Muslims were living together in peace for many years, and how the relationship that it's still entered right now, like a fantastic relationship between Moroccan and Muslim Jews, and Moroccan Jews around the world, and the king in Morocco. Like, we have a fantastic relationship. But I was among the generation that was impacted with some like radical ideas that came from the Middle East, the Wahhabism that reached out, and the oil money that was spent on that agenda to reach out North Africa. So I would lie if I said that when I was a teenager, I didn't have anything for Israelis but hatred. I was brainwashed.
So you're Muslim. I'm sorry, I don't even know. You were raised Muslim.
Yeah. Yes, okay. I'm Muslim, and I was raised Muslim, and like I practice. I'm a Muslim. I practice Islam until right now, and I didn't hear anything positive about Israel in the media, like at school. So for me, Israelis were just a bunch of killers that came to the Middle East to kill Arabs, and when they are done from Palestine, they are gonna go to other countries and do the same with other people. So that's what unfortunately, I was one of the generation that was impacted by this ideology. So the story that really got me to challenge these ideas is when I went to visit my friends in the mountains, in an area around Marrakesh, like 2 hours away from Marrakesh, and in these very poor areas where a group of Berber families live in the mountains. And he invited me to go to lunch at his aunt's house. So I was at this house. The family is very poor family, like one room house, and they start serving lunch, and the lady that we were in her house, she had a little kid that she was like, I think 11 years old, and she told me that she had an open heart surgery. So I told her, okay, so I know that open heart surgeries are expensive, and usually they're not done in Morocco. You have to go to Europe to do them. How did you afford to do that? And she was like, well, I didn't even know that my daughter made a heart surgery. There is this doctor, he's a Jew, he's originally from Morocco, he's from this area, his grandparents immigrated from our little town, and he went to Israel, so now he came back and he built a house here, and he come to visit from time to time, and he saw my daughter, and he told her that your daughter has something wrong, you need to take her to a doctor. So I told him I don't have money. He took her to Marrakesh to see a doctor, and we discovered that she needed an open heart surgery. The guy was a doctor too. So I said, I can't afford that. And he contacted an organization in Israel. They took care of us. They took care of our visas. We went there. My daughter had her surgery, and we stayed there for 6 months. You took really good care for us. This story might seem very normal to an American. For me, that was a shock. Israelis helping a woman in Morocco to come to Israel for 6 months, paying for all the expenses and paying for the surgery is not something that, this was the first positive thing that I heard about Israel. And it was a big thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
she was a Muslim woman?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And she barely can speak Arabic. She only can speak Amazigh. And she had, I mean, like, she was a very simple lady. She doesn't have any political background, or she doesn't want to defend Israel. She just was genuinely talking about her experience in Israel and how she was treated as Muslim women from Morocco with her hijab and with her scarf. She was treated with respect. And here she raised a lot of questions for me. And this is where my journey started. Learning about Moroccan Jews, the history of the Jews, learning why the Jews are here, learning the Jewish story, the Jewish the Jews' relationship to that land. Why did they come back? And try to understand the problem from a different perspective, and the history of the Israeli-Palestine conflict, and just start learning about modern or temporarily Israeli society. And I was shocked because I discovered that 99% of the information that I was fed up was wrong. I was brainwashed. And I was like, well, I mean, this is unfair. Like, maybe I can do something to educate others and to help them, like, just see the conflict from a different perspective. I'm not here to defend Israel. Israeli governments are not perfect like any other government in the world. But Israel is not evil as well, as we grew up learning. So it just we just want to get to that sweet spot where we are fair to Israel and its history and what they did since they came back to that piece of land. What you were able to do, and the civilization that you were able to build, and the democracy that you were able to build, and maybe just like see stuff from a different angle. So that's my story. That's what pushed me to do all of this.
That hits on sorry, my headphones go. That hits on so many levels for me, Mustapha. Like the media propaganda, the fact that the media is pushing these narratives over and over and over again, and people are busy with their lives. They don't have time to look deep into everything. They just get their 5 minutes of the news and they go, okay, well, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. It's overly simplistic. We see that all the time now. We see it even when it starts to crumble. And then you get one little crack. And that little crack, some people ignore it and they go, no, I'm not going to look into that little portal that just opened up. I'm not going to go in there because it's going to cause me to just turn upside down my whole life. What I think is up is actually down. What I think is good is actually bad. It's a turbulent process. I've been through that process. That's why I do what I do now. I get how disruptive it is, but some people, you are one, I am one. A lot of people who listen to this podcast are those people that go, I'm going through that portal. I don't know what's through there, but I am going to rock my world. And you went through, and I think that, going back to that doctor, it's the power of an individual. So often in today's society, we think that like, we're just one person. What change can we have? But I remind people of Martin Luther King, as cliche as it is to use Martin Luther King. There were major stereotypes against Black people during that time. It was, they are violent and they are uneducated. So he became a pacifist with a PhD, a terminal degree. So you can't say Black people are this because there's him. You can't say Jews are this because that doctor. And it only takes one. So whatever you are, to the people listening, whatever you are, there are stereotypes against your people for being certain things. You can change that in the way that you live for that individual. And then who knows the ripple effects, like a rock thrown into a pond, of how that expands. And now look at all the stuff that you're doing, Mustapha, just because of your interaction with that one woman and that one doctor. That's how an individual can have a massive effect on the world.
Absolutely.
And I think we have to understand that.
Absolutely. He affected my life. His story affected my life in so many ways, and he doesn't even know about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we never met. He doesn't
No.
even know about it.
No.
So,
It's
yeah. So when you do good, when you represent what you stand for the best way possible, the benefits that you do in the world is beyond your understanding capacity.
yeah. You might have
It's
no idea.
beyond what you think. You might like helping an organization, donating to an organization. You might think that you did little good, but the real effect you don't even like. You can't even imagine what you did with that $50 or $100 or just I don't know, like helping with an event, educational
Yeah.
event, or even like
Being
you
polite to someone on the street. Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. You are an ambassador for what you stand for. You are and especially um, Jews. Like I think that right now people are, um, especially with the conflict that is going on right now. I feel like Jews are being
Yeah.
watched,
Yeah.
not washed, watched.
Yeah.
They are being watched, what they are doing, how they are treating people, how they are they all of them like people are trying to I can come up with the word. Categorize them
Mm-hmm.
in one box. That's wrong. But you just need to you need to know that you are being watched and people are watching what you are doing. Absolutely.
Yeah, Barry Weiss, her book How to Fight Anti-Semitism was really good. She broke down like how Jews are basically getting hit from all angles. They're getting the alt-right, racist people who are, Jews are the devil type of like KKK people. They're getting the radical, Islamic terrorist kind of like movements, obviously against the Jews, but then they're also getting it from the political left that are pushing for things like equity and things along those lines, and representation in certain things, because Jews, even though they're like 2% of the population, they're 40% of the doctors and they're 50% of the tenured college professors and things like that. So by definition, they are like the oppressor. And that's to get into the topic of Israel, Mustapha. Let me tell you the way I view it, because it's very simplistic, my view of it, because I don't know the details, and I'm hoping that I can flesh this out or tell me where I'm off or how to add nuance to my understanding. Because when I look at, there's so many different angles on the Israeli situation. So there's two things that I really look at. One is it fits with the common narration of the world is cut up in the oppressors versus the oppressed. So it could be white people, and then it could be, BIPOC people. It could be wealthy people and poor people. It could be whatever it is. In this case, the oppressor is the one with more resources, more power, so to speak. And that would clearly be Israel, because of the military, because of the wealth, because of what Israel has achieved. I mean, the number of Nobel Prizes and things that come out of that tiny little New Jersey type of, small land, that makes them the oppressor. And then you look at how people in, Gaza are living. It's so beyond poor that those are clearly the oppressed. So it fits that very clear, that kind of simplistic narrative of, well, the one with so much is the bad guy, the one with so little is the good guy. That is one element of my Israel kind of understanding. The other one is, when you say it's stolen land, it depends on how much you zoom back. Stolen land if you go back to 1945, or stolen land when you go back 3,000 years. I mean, the similar things happen in America, where you say like colonists or, American white people are on stolen land by the Native Americans. It's like, well, yeah, but even which tribe? Because there were 300 or 400 different languages and different tribes and different cultures among Native Americans, and they were always warring and taking over lands. It depends on how far you go back. Who really owns that land is far more complex than the last one who had it before the white people, or before before Israel was established in 1948. Like, it's far more complex than that. So those are the two kind of things that I kind of walk into the Israel conversations with: the oppressor versus the oppressed, and then how far you go back for the discussion of stolen land. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, am I on to it, but what am I missing? What are my nuance? What are your thoughts on those kind of my thoughts?
Well, I think that people who are looking at the Israeli-Palestine conflict, they are mixing or in their mind, strength means evilness directly. Just because you are strong or the stronger, you are the you are evil, or you are the um, you are impressing Palestinians. And I want to speak to Americans, like in particular, because you went through this. You were attacked by terrorist organizations, and you went to wars against these groups in different areas of the world, in Libya, in Afghanistan, in Iraq. But you don't call themselves oppressors, even though they're way stronger than countries that they started war with, but you were defending themselves. When it comes to Israel, they are not defending themselves against a group of terrorists in Gaza. No, they are impressing them. They are the evils. So I believe that Israel is the only country in the world that they are not allowed to defend themselves just because they are in a conflict. And I think that that's coming from people not thinking of them as a state. Um, if we were to hear about one rocket from a terrorist group attacking Paris or London, the world will flip, and we will go into wars, and Europe will all go to war to defend their allies and all of that. When we hear that, like 2,000 rockets hit Tel Aviv, well, it's just another episode of the conflict,
Because
and
they
we
don't have
take
a
it.
right to be there in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
It's stolen. It's
They
not theirs.
or they are not real estate. They haven't built real estate yet,
Mm.
even though they are the only democracy in the Middle East. Um, so I think that we used to it. We are numbed when we hear that Israelis are being attacked. We don't think about it like a modern society. People have jobs. There are doctors, architects, people like nurses who go to their job in the morning. That morning they couldn't go to their jobs. They had to go to a bomb shelter with their kids and stay there until the authorities can tell them otherwise. We don't think about it like the life of a state has stopped because they are being attacked. So I'm really having a hard time like wrapping around my mind around why Israel's, when they say we are defending ourselves, is taken with a negative um negative way. um, Even when you say Israeli army, I mean, like most people, the word is very negative in their. Every country has an army, and they are doing their job, which is to protect civilians. Why not Israel? Why, when it comes to Israel, that's problematic. Israel is the only country right now that lives among enemies, not friends, and they are not political enemies. They are enemies that don't believe, that they are against its existence. That's very radical. Like we have enemies all over the world that are like I don't know, like Morocco and Algeria have a lot of problem right now. Egypt and Libya, but this is different. These are people who wish you were dead. Do you want you gone? Do you want you out of this world? That's very radical. That's really hard. It's really hard to imagine that to live in a state where you know that all your neighbors want you gone. It's really hard to put yourself in that situation. Iran is wants you gone. Um,
I mean, how many Jews are there in Iran? Zero, right?
Zero, yeah, yeah.
Zero.
I
Like
mean, yeah,
if you walk down the street of Tehran and you put on a yarmulke and you held you said like I love Israel, or you said I am a Jewish man,
you're gonna die. They're gonna kill you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can go to Tel Aviv and say whatever you want.
You could go to Tel Aviv and say, I am a practicing Muslim, praise Allah, and you won't be killed.
Absolutely. We're not going to go to that level. We'll just try to go to Gaza and say, I am a Jew and I support Israel. You're going to die. But you can go to Tel Aviv and say, Muslims and I stand for Palestinians. Israel is very unique, well, to the point where the country is trying to adopt people that are very that are radical. So if we look at the Knesset, for example, we find that there are Arab Muslims Knesset members. Can we imagine that there will be a Palestine with the Jewish representation? That will never happen. I'm telling you, that will never happen. Another thing to look at, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine during the Israeli Hamas war, and I told him, he was talking about Al-Aqsa Mosque and all of that, and they told him, well, let's be honest with ourselves. We know our people. We know Muslims. We know the way they think. And you close your eyes and imagine that the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem is under Hamas control for one day. Do you see any Jews worshiping over there? Impossible. Do you see any Christians worshiping over there? Impossible. You will only let Muslims, and you will only let Muslims that think like them. Okay. As a Sufi Muslims, I don't think it will be allowed to go to the mosque if Hamas was in control of Jerusalem and in control of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now we see under the Israeli control, we see that the three religions have the right to worship. They are guaranteeing that at least. So this answers who has the right to control Al-Aqsa Mosque and to control that holy land. Whoever can protect it and give the right to all three religions to practice. I can guarantee you that Hamas will never do that.
Mustapha, I'm so glad that you said that that you talk with Muslims in your community in the world, and they recognize that this is an issue, a problem, to say the least. Like the radical jihadist, violent element of the faith. Or not, maybe not of the faith, I shouldn't say, of individuals doing it in the name of the faith is a major area that you constantly talk about, because it doesn't get talked about in the news. Like it's Pride Month, and something that came up a lot was about the Pulse nightclub shooting and how that was a homophobic attack and all this kind of stuff. But if you look up, the man who did that mass shooting did it in the name of God. And he did it, in the name of, now, whether or not he was homophobic, I mean, he shot up a gay nightclub and stuff like that, but nowhere did I see it being addressed that he did this saying, I'm doing this for Allah, like ignoring the fact that this is something that among Muslims, and I've talked to several Muslims that talk about this, I'm friends with Irshad Manji, who's trying to push for updating, stuff in the Islamic faith about homosexuality and things like that. And she's been treated terribly. Like, this is a real issue, but I don't know. It's almost like racial issues in general, where a lot of people, especially like white people, just stay out of it. White liberals, just, I'm not getting involved in that one. Like, you can't bring it up and have the conversation that this is a problem. It's not saying that. If you talk about violence in in the Black community, it's not saying Black people are bad. You're saying this is a problem in the Black community. And if you're bringing this up about the Muslim community, this is saying you are looking out for your fellow humans. You're trying to understand what the problem is so we can fix it among these individuals in these marginalized groups. I think that's something, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something that people just feel very hesitant to even touch it. They're just, I don't even want to touch that one. And I'm here touching it because I want to try and understand it better. So thank you for bringing up that concept. Also the idea of strong being evil. I use the example of Mufasa from The Lion King. Very strong, but, you know, benevolent, understood the importance of balance and all that kind of stuff. The idea that power is inherently evil, or that people, even individuals, want to just strive for power. That's the striving for power is what makes the world go round. I don't think that is true. I don't subscribe to that. I think there's far too many examples, going back even to our closest relatives and chimpanzees, that just the strive for just all, you know, the iron fist power is not how you thrive. It's about
Absolutely.
sharing power. It's about a balance. It's about getting all individuals to feel like they don't need to have an uprising type of thing. So those are great points that you brought up. I appreciate you raising those two things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, continue.
I just want to like talk a little bit about what I noticed during the recent war.
This one is different. So I want you to pontificate on this, but it was different, correct? We have a mutual friend who's a rabbi in Los Angeles, and I had a long conversation with him. It seems different. Maybe it's aligned with this social critical social justice stuff, the Black Lives Movement movements and all that kind of stuff. It felt like you just, again, replaced the oppressor with now this, and it was so interesting how many people came out to say, free Palestine, free Palestine, free Palestine. It was everywhere, and I hadn't seen that before. So I'm guessing that's what you're going to go into. So I'm sorry, but please continue.
Absolutely. It seems like it was a trending thing, right? Like recently, and a lot of celebrities jumped on that train just so that they don't lose their followers or whatever. I don't know, but it was trending to go against Israel in this last war, even though protests around the world, here in the United States, in LA, in New York, in London, in Europe. When we take a look at the signs that were held at this protest, we don't see anything against Zionism. We don't see anything against the Israeli government. We see signs that are two kinds. Ones that are 100% against the existence of Israel. We see signs that says from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means Israel should be gone. And we see anti-Semitic signs that are against Jews directly. So these people don't have only problems with Zionists or with the governments. They are having a problem with the existence of the country. So whenever there is a conflict, we never criticize the Israeli government as we should if they are doing something wrong. So when for example, America invaded Iraq and people didn't like that, you were insulting the American government. But no one come and say, you shouldn't be there. You guys should be gone. We should destroy all of you. You don't. So whenever there is a conflict, Israel is against defending its existence, not its policies. That's very critical. These people are fighting not enemies, but people who are against their existence. And when you are fighting someone who is against your existence, you fight with your arms and legs, as he said. You fight as strong as you can.
How would you respond, Mustapha? I hear you, but how do you respond to all the people that say, I'm not against, I'm not for killing Jewish people, obviously, because of the Holocaust, but I just want Israel to be opened up so that Muslims and Jews can just live in harmony together. Like they say, like, I don't want Jews to be killed. I just want Israel to be blended in and just have it be, a state where they can all kind of live in harmony. Like that gets told to me when I give some pushback to this. How do you respond? Like they say, I don't want to kill Jews. That's not what I'm talking about at all. Is that naive by your?
Well, I mean, I'll open up to whom?
I guess it would be to like to have I'm not super familiar, so I might be wrong, but get the Gaza area, Palestine, make it Palestine, the whole thing.
I mean,
I don't know.
Palestinians refused peace deals that recognize them as a state. How would they accept to live in Israel as a part of the state of Israel? That's impossible. They have refused like the peace deals that recognize them as a country, and
Why? Why do they
recognize
do
them
that?
because they want the whole land.
Okay, so no compromise. It's all or nothing.
No compromising, and that's the definition of Hamas: is no compromisation. Like they don't want to compromise. That's the problem. I mean, Israel right now have peace deals in the office of every Arab leaders. It's only up to us to make peace with Israel whenever we want. They are always willing to make peace because they want to live in peace. These people are tired of war. They want their kids and their grandkids to not live in the same condition that they live in. They are tired of fighting Saddam, and then fighting Iran, and then you just want to be in good terms with their neighbors, and their peace treaties or agreements on the office of all Arab leaders to start a new page. It's really up.
Yeah, no, I hear it. The situation is so bad in elements of Palestine, though, that I mean, is there something that we can do there? You know, Israel does have a lot more wealth and resources. Is there something that can be done to help those people who are living, you know, so in such squalor and poverty that Israel can give them like better housing and things like that? Like, what is? Can you solve the Middle East thing real quick for me and stuff?
Yeah, right. Give me a minute.
Yeah, but I guess I think about it like that. Like, if there's poor communities in America, and I think like, hey, we can go into Iraq and do what we did there, and then send Halliburton in there to rebuild it. Why don't we send Halliburton into Baltimore or the south side of Chicago? Like, build like actual, you know, nice community centers and things like that. Like, we can do that. Couldn't Israel do that, or the help of America and Israel do that in these very poor areas of like Gaza and what's considered Palestine?
Well, that's very complicated because first, Gaza is occupied by Hamas. I think that Palestinians need to be free from Hamas first before.
That's the first thing. And Hamas, for people that don't know, can you explain that? Because I know a little bit, but you know it better.
Sorry,
just explain what Hamas is, because a lot of people might not even know what Hamas is.
Palestine
is divided up by a couple of different groups, right?
Yeah, Hamas is an Islamic jihadist group that their ideology is very extremist, and they are people who wouldn't compromise. Their only solution to the problem is to kick all the Jews out from that land and get rid of Israel. That's the definition of Hamas, as simple as it gets. And they are the ones who are running Gaza right now. And you need to know that in Gaza, saying anything positive about Israel, any contact with Israelis will be considered a huge. You will be considered a huge, like a traitor, and you might be killed. It's a taboo to talk about even having a relationship with the Israelis.
That includes you, doesn't it? I mean, are you viewed as a traitor among a lot of?
My opinions that I'm expressing right now are viewed as I might be viewed as a traitor. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's bad, but that's the reality.
But you believe it's worth it to you because you believe it to be that important, that you will essentially risk. I mean, I don't know how serious it would be for you. Is it just reputation? Is it beyond that? I don't know.
Well, I mean, if I was in the Middle East, I will be in danger. Absolutely. To express my ideas like this, I will be in. If I was living in the Middle East, I will be in danger. Yes. But I don't believe that we will reach peace if we're not criticizing ourselves from inside. If we are not criticizing how we are raising our kids right now, what are we teaching them about the Jews and about Israel? What are we like? How our curriculums are presented? how are we presenting Jews in our curriculums, and how we and what are our imams are saying about Jews and Israel at the mosques. If we didn't talk about these taboo things and criticize them and try to change them, we are just creating another generations that will live in war, and that's very sad. We're just creating and producing little bombs that are willing to explode any times. It's very sad, like, to see what some Arab countries are teaching their kids at school, and the hatred, the amount of hatred that they are charging with. And then you see their leaders here in the United States and in Europe trying to help with the peace process. What peace process are you talking about? Go back to your country and try to build a generation that believe in peace and believe in the other and believe in accepting the other. When you teach me that when the Jew is giving you his right hand, he makes sure that he's not carrying a knife in the left one. What are you producing to the world?
Right.
Like, how are you going to reach? They're playing double face, and we're never gonna. We're not genuine when we're talking about peace. We're never genuine, and we really want peace, because if we do, we will think more about what we are doing in our Arab country, inside our Arab countries, and in our educational system, in our schools, in our mosques, in our medias. So all of that, we can't do one thing inside and then go to conferences internationally and express that we are supporting peace in the Middle East and all of that.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit that's hypocrisy.
Yeah, there's such an alignment. My last podcast was with Kimi Katiti, and she subscribed to a lot of critical race theory, critical social justice theory stuff. And she said that she was originally from Africa and came here as an immigrant. And she said that she was just carrying around such anger and hatred all the time that when she saw someone who, she said hi to someone, they didn't say hi to her back, and it was like a white girl or something, she's like, oh, she's racist. And then she counted up all of the microaggressions that she felt throughout her day, and it was hundreds of things, just constant anger and feeling like, wow, I am just oppressed and I'm smashed and I'm bad, and carrying all that. And then she got rid of it, and she just expelled it from her life, and she said she could have a good night's rest for the first time. She was getting such headaches. It seems like there's something there here as well, that, you were raised, and a lot of people are raised to hate. And
Absolutely.
You can justify it with history. You can say, like, my family had, this family home for generations, and then in 1948 we were kicked out of our home in a very violent way, and therefore we're always going to hold on to that anger. Like African Americans in this country, there is a horrible history. No one's denying that. It's how do we move forward? That has been done. How can we learn from that and move forward, as opposed to holding on to that anger? And I understand it. I do. I'm trying to think about what is the best approach forward now. Is it to forgive and move forward with some sort of reconciliation, instead of holding on? What's it called? Like restorative justice. Like when you've been wronged by someone, to sit down, like the family versus like the person who killed someone in their family, and find some sort of way to move forward together. I just think it has to be done with everything in history that has been really horrible, because of human history is filled with horrible actions against everybody across all kinds of different lines. But we have to move forward for the sake of our children to have something better.
Absolutely.
So we've been doing an hour. Mustapha, I'm so glad that you've been here. Moving forward, what would you suggest to people who are listening to this that maybe want to learn about the issue more, or who have a very strong sense? Some might be a very strong sense that Muslims are bad, dangerous, should not be, people who were all for, the travel bans and things like that. I'm sure there are people like that listening who have a very closed-minded idea about what it means to be Muslim, to subscribe to the Islamic faith. And then there's also the people who have the other side, Israel doesn't have a right to exist, free Palestine. What is the general advice that you would have for people, regardless of where they are, but that have a very strong stance that the other is the bad guy? What's the approach after they turn off this podcast? Where do they go from here to try and get that crack, that portal that you and I discussed early on?
Well, very simple. We live in a very complex world. The world is very complex. The world is changing, is unsettled, and we can't have a simplistic ideas for a complex world. The world is relative, and we can't have an absolute. You can't own absolute truth because the whole world is relative. So whatever you think about a group of people is gonna be right to some extent and wrong to some extent. So I think people should never settle for an idea. If I settled for my ideas, I would be a jihadi with Hamas right now. If I didn't challenge that, if I didn't try to learn more about the conflict, if I didn't try to look at it from a different perspective and to educate myself. Education is very important. And there are a lot of organizations that do that around the world, here in the United States and in Europe. What I noticed is not a lot of organizations are reaching to Arab young people. Because I was one of them, or I am one of them, I still see them as victims. Even though I disagree with the way they see Israelis and they see the Jews and all of that, but they see them as victims because you were brainwashed. I think they need help. I think we need organizations that reach out to them and educate them a little bit about the what's going on in the area, about the history of the Jews and the history of or the relationship of the Jews to that piece of to the Holy Land, and try to like give them a little bit about what's going on in Israel from daily. Like if you go to Algeria or to Tunisia and you told them that there are Muslim nurses with their hijab going to the hospitals and working in Tel Aviv, you will never imagine that, because that's not what they are seeing in the media. We need to give them that picture. We need to reach out to them. Unfortunately, even Israeli organizations are just reaching to Europe, or reaching out to Europe and to America, because they think that that's what matters, because you have political they are politically they have political weight, so they are focusing on these areas. They're not reaching to the Arab world. It's difficult. It's not that they're not reaching for a reason, but it's difficult. But we should at least try. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I really, really appreciate it, Mustapha.
Absolutely.
What is the best way? Are you on social media? Can people reach out to you, follow what you're doing, anything like that?
Absolutely. So we have a Facebook page, the Moroccan-Israeli Friendship Association, MIFA. We have our website, mifa.us.org. And my personal Facebook is Mustapha Ezzarghani. And yeah, please, if people are interested in being involved in the organization and the activity, please reach out to us. We have our contact information on the website and on our social media, and try to be involved in any way, either with our organization or other organization. But as we said in the beginning, you never know what the little thing that you did will have, like what impact will have on the world. Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.